Well, hello, Indianapolis Motor Speedway fans. Doug Boles here for episode 2 of Behind the Bricks. We're having a lot of fun of these. If you haven't caught the first one, check it out on our YouTube channels and our other social media channels. We're having a lot of fun giving you some behind-the-scenes information and introducing you to some of the people who are behind the scenes that make the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Indianapolis 500, our NASCAR weekend, some of the best racing weekends every year, anywhere in the world. Today, I'm excited to bring a new face to Behind the Bricks, one who has been working for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for a long time as our senior corporate counsel at Penske Entertainment, but more recently has taken on a second job. Yep, he's got to do 2 jobs inside of one. It's our Chief Diversity Officer, Jimmie McMillian. Jimmie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate the opportunity.
You know, let's just get started. I mean, you've been with the Speedway for quite a while now. Talk a little bit about how you were first introduced to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and then how did you end up here?
So, crazy story. I was not a racing fan. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, did not know anything about motorsports. During my time in college, I ended up actually flunking out of school after my father shot my mother. And I'm scrambling around trying to figure out what to do with life, and ended up working at a Firestone. The guys in the shop were teasing me because I didn't know anything about racing. They listened to the race every Sunday. And so they brought me to my first race. And as soon as I heard the cars crank up, I fell in love with it. It was the Brickyard 400. And from there, I just developed this passion for racing. And at one point, in association with my motorcycle passion, I decided to ask if I could do a fundraiser here for the Christopher House. And they were gracious enough to say yes. And we had over 8,000 bikes here. It was a fantastic event. And from that, it just became this passion of mine to somehow merge my love of law with motorsports. And then eventually met you. Developed a motorsports practice group while I was at my law firm, and at some point decided, you know what, I really want to do this full time. I want to practice law as a motorsports attorney.
So you started out here as an attorney, helping us work through contracts. I call you 4 or 5 times a day to work through things as we're trying to make a difference in the way we're dealing with customers, thinking through how do we make our fan experience better. So you've been involved with all of it. What I love about that, though, is the whole time you've been here, this is before the Chief Diversity Officer thing comes up, you've always been really engaged in the community. So talk a little bit about how important it is for you to take the position you have and then take it out to the community. And you've really done a great job of introducing people to the Speedway that probably didn't think they should come here or were welcome here.
This is such a great treasure here. This is Indiana. The joy, the love, the passion, the bringing people together, what this stands for, not only for the state, but for the United States of America, working at the greatest racetrack in the world, it means the world to me. And I want so many other people to experience it. There's so much drama and turmoil and some of the things that we see that go on, and you have to help. You have to be dedicated to making things better. You just can't complain and sit back. And so I've dedicated my life to try to go out to schools and talk to kids, to serve on boards and serve in activities, to do fundraisers, to do whatever I can to try to improve the lives of those who are not as fortunate as me. I realize every day when I walk into this place, I'm blessed. I have not had a bad second at work since May 2nd, 2016. And it would be a horrible loss if I didn't do everything I could to make sure every kid in Hawville and on Post Road, all over the city of Indianapolis, if I didn't do everything I could to make sure every kid had an opportunity to live the life I live and to one day be at a job like I have at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
You know, you talked a little bit about the Christopher House and how the relationship here started as a fundraiser using your love for motorcycles. You've recently taken on our United Way campaign, and really not just here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but INDYCAR throughout Penske Entertainment, getting us all galvanized together to raise money for the United Way campaign. A few years ago, when we were ending the season at Sonoma, you came up with a crazy idea to merge your love for motorsport, giving back, and motorcycles, and you started on the Yard of Bricks and rode a motorcycle from Indianapolis to Sonoma for the final race of the year. Talk a little bit about that ride, how much fun it was, and I'll tell you my best memory from that was your mom on the Yard of Bricks as we sang Back Home Again in Indiana and got you ready to go to send you off. Talk a little bit about what that ride was like and how you really right there merged everything you love all in the course of a few days and riding through the mountains.
It was excellent. I had the opportunity. I wasn't by myself. I rode with my club brother, fraternity brother, and my wingman, Kendall Williams, from here to California, and we rode all the way across 70, which we were advised not to do. It was amazing. And when we made 4 stops coming out of Denver, going through the mountains, it got so cold that I started to rethink the plan, but it was too late to turn around and go back. And we sat there freezing, trying to make ourselves warm. And the amazing thing about that was before the day was over, we were taking all the stuff out because we were in the desert and it was blazing hot. That year, we were able to raise $85,000 based on that ride. And it was just one of those things where it's like, I love this. I love to be able to merge my passion with my profession and then to do good in the community. I now serve on the board of the United Way. And you see that across the city, people who are taking things that they love and trying to turn them into something good for somebody else. And everything that you give in this world, you get back. And I think that's some of the story of this place, right? That's your leadership style. That's some of the things that we all learn from you. It's a great thing to work for somebody and have the leadership that we have, but work for somebody like you who's also a lawyer, but who every day you feel like he shares their passion for the community and for doing well and doing great things and figuring out ways to incorporate this love of motorsports for a positive purpose. And so that's really the motivation.
It was a lot of fun to watch staff send you off and check in on your rides as you were posting things going across the country, and we knew you loved it. We also worried about you taking that ride because it was not just the simplest of things to do. You know, let's talk about something maybe a little more difficult, and we'll talk about what's really transpired over the last almost year now. Started out with COVID and our challenges that we had related to getting customers here, and a lot of work that you had to do alongside the team to start preparing for how do we deal with the pandemic? Can we host customers? What are the protocols we have to put in place? And then last summer things changed, especially with respect to how are we focusing on diversity and inclusion throughout organizations and not just paying lip service to it. Penske Entertainment trying to figure out where we're going to fit in this new world, how we're going to make a difference as an organization. So can you talk a little bit about from that announcement, and then we've made several announcements since then. One of them was making you the Chief Diversity Officer, some investment in a relationship we've had with the Next Gen Racers folks already. Force Indy, talk a little bit about that, and then the Paretta Autosport. We've got a long way to go, but talk a little bit about some of the things that have happened since that announcement.
So I break down our race for equality and change in a couple of segments. When we first started, I was at home and got a call from our CEO, Mark Miles, and said, hey, you need to get in the office now. Roger Penske wants to talk about putting together a program for diversity and inclusion around motorsports. And we literally sat in the office and kind of mapped out together what the race for equality and change would look like. Mark and you and I and others have been working on diversity initiatives for a while. But obviously, anytime you do something with Roger Penske, it's taken to the next level. And this was no different. We sat down and we talked about, I think you always start with a diversity program with looking inward. How do you change your structure internally in terms of not just the people that work for you, but the culture? And that's one of the things that we're working on. And it's an effort because you have to have outreach. You have to find great folks who are willing to work in an area in a sport which traditionally has been very monolithic in its approach. And we're already seeing an increase in our applicants. We're already seeing the type of talent that we like starting to rise to the surface. And as we continue to make moves in acquiring people for positions and internships, I think that's going to have a big impact on the sport. The second is the people that we do business with, right? You can't ask people to come out and support this place if you're not willing to support them in some way. And we have a lot of room for improvement in terms of the businesses that we basically use as vendors and suppliers of services across IMS, INDYCAR, and IMS Productions. We're building stronger relationships with MBEs and WBEs and starting to look at across our industry, how can we engage these folks in meaningful ways and show them that, hey, we're invested in you the same way we want you invested in us. Then you talked about Nxg Youth Motorsports, a fantastic program that my son Lance is in. I know you guys all tease me for being the helicopter dad. He starts this week. Saturday starts his Grand Prix series. This is his second year in the program. But it's really an excellent program because it mixes STEM, kids who love racing and love go-karts, which we call the shiny object, but it's also a personal development and career development opportunity. And what I really love about the program is we're now moving from serving about 166 kids a year to over 300 kids this year. We used to have just an outdoor program. Now we have an indoor and outdoor program. They have a home here, a garage right here in our facility within the track. We've raised over $500,000, $600,000 for the program, including a donation from Snap-on Tools so that now we have a tool and wrench program so kids can learn how to work on the carts. I mean, that's really dynamic. And we're expanding the program to Detroit. This is really a program that it's been going for 14 years. This is now its 15th year, and it's really going to be impactful as we try to expand this race for equality and change and directly touching kids who have an interest in motorsports. Finally, it's our outreach to the community in the various ways that we do that outreach to different organizations and partner with organizations, and we're finding ways to expand our reach and make sure that we're touching organizations like Indiana Black Expo and the Indianapolis Urban League and other organizations around the city that have always wanted to be a part of this place and are looking for partnership and ways to basically make sure that their community and the people they serve are a part. And then probably the most significant thing we've done is we've started two teams. Two diverse teams that are focused on diversity. One is Force Indy, led by Rod Reed, who was the CEO of Nxg Youth Motorsports and now is the team principal and owner of Force Indy, a team that is dedicated to having primarily African Americans as engineers, as an owner, the driver, who they recently announced, congratulations to Miles Rowe, who was just announced as a driver for Force Indy and who will be competing in the F2000 series. This is significant because what we found is pipeline and opportunity. You can train all the folks you want. You have people with passion, but there was nowhere for them to go to get the training they needed to get to the next level. Force Indy allows them to do that. We know that everyone won't stay with the team, but we know that some of those folks will develop and grow and get opportunities on other teams. And if you look at who's on their engineering side right now, those are all NXG kids. Those are kids who started out years ago in those little go-karts and then went on, got the training. Some of them went to Purdue, got the education and skills, but it never got the opportunity, and now they're actually on a race team. That is significant in terms of the kids coming behind them in NXG being able to be what they see, and it's fantastic. Then you follow that up with Paretta Autosport. Beth Paretta, who has been here before, has tried this before, but this year has started a team dedicated to the development of women in motorsports. Same principle of having women on the engineering side, having a woman owner, having a female driver in Simona de Silvestro, who's going to try to compete to be in the Indianapolis 500 this year, and she's going to attempt to run a full season next year. That is what we're talking about in terms of the spirit of providing opportunity and what the race for equality and change is all about.
A couple of quick things that are fun I want to touch on, and then we'll let you go. But you got a special relationship with your mom. Your mom is a fan. She comes to the racetrack. Talk a little bit about some of the fun things that we did with your mom with Will Power. When we had a chance to see Will, when Miles was testing here, you surprised your mom. You did a little FaceTime with her. Talk a little bit about how your mom's fallen in love with the sport.
So my mother is Marjorie McMillian. She's from Louisville, Mississippi. She knew absolutely nothing about racing. When I told her I was going to leave the large law firm and come here, she asked me, "Are you sure that place is going to stay open?" And I said, "Ma, I'm pretty sure that the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is going to remain open." So she was very nervous about it. And she started coming out to the races, and she fell in love instantly with Will Power. I'm not sure how or why, but she has this saying that he's got the will and he's got the power. And she puts her jerseys on and her shirts on, and she is a super Will Power fan. She watches the races. This is an African-American woman from the South who knew nothing about racing. So we had the opportunity to FaceTime her with Will, and she just broke into tears, crying because Will Power was there. And it was really special because at the time that we were there, Will was here watching Miles Rowe, the new driver for Force Indy, compete because he helped introduce Miles to Roger. And really, Miles had competed in one of Will's go-karting programs. And I tell people almost daily that I will be a Will Power fan for life because he did something that many are afraid to do. He put his reputation on the line because he saw somebody with talent and he thought that they deserved the opportunity. And a lot of people don't know the stories behind our drivers and who they really are. They see them in the helmet, they see them in the car, but they don't know what type of people they are. Will Power and his wife are those type of people that you want to be affiliated with and who are the people that make opportunities and change things in this world. What he did for Miles and what he's done for Miles and his family is just unimaginable. He's given him a chance. And think about how many people have done that. I think about how many people have done that for me. You, Mark, everybody here in the leadership here, giving me a chance. That's all you want. And at that point, you got to perform. But that's not, after that, and I told my mother that, now my mother's like a super Will Power fan, so every race, it's always interesting. I'm glad that Will drives for Team Penske because it helps that our whole house is pretty much a Team Penske household. My son is a big Joseph Newgarden fan, and so we're all aligned.
I hope you enjoyed this segment. I mean, it's a blast to get to work with Jimmie. You can see it in his passion. One thing we always laugh, we tell Jimmie, hey, step it up a notch or two because you just are a little too quiet. He's been a blast to have. We're fortunate. This community's fortunate. Motorsports is fortunate to have a leader like Jimmie. Next, a lot of things have happened in racing over the last few weeks. We touched on one, the Force Indy announcement, and Miles Rowe going to drive in the F2000 series for that team. But Dave First has more on the INDYCAR series and announcements and testing this last week.
Whoever celebrates the 2021 championship on the streets of Long Beach this fall just might point back to what they learned this winter. Sebring is where the season unofficially begins, and most every NTT IndyCar Series team has taken advantage of the opportunity. A total of 3 test days from mid-January to early February. The circuit is the 1.7-mile 10-turn club circuit. It includes several 90-degree corners and a variety of surfaces and undulations in the braking areas. A little rough and tumble, but it's pretty close to how street circuits feel. Remember, street circuits make up 6 of the 17 races in the upcoming season, including the season finale at the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. A total of 3,600 laps turned, covering some 6,200 miles. Pato O'Ward reportedly among those turning the fastest laps, although lap times aren't as important as testing a variety of setups. And when it comes to that, the teams say mission accomplished. Meanwhile, the driver lineup continues to take shape for the new season. This month, Formula One star Romain Grosjean announced on his Twitch channel that he's making the move to IndyCar, where the 34-year-old Frenchman will drive the number 51 for Dale Coyne with RWR. In a Zoom call, he says his left hand continues to recover from his fiery crash at Bahrain last year and can't wait to get going on IndyCar's road and street course schedule. He even showed off his new helmet paint scheme designed by his children.
Why is this move the right one for you at this time?
I looked at the options that I had and I say, what I want to do is to go in IndyCar because I've been watching the races. The series looks super competitive. The car looks fun to drive. The circuit looked amazing. Just the old style that I really like. When you look at Road America, Mid Ohio, all the street courses, Laguna Seca, they are part of the circuits that I used to play video games on those when I was, 20 years ago. Not good to say that, but 20 years ago. And, I am super excited to discover the championship.
Thanks, Dave. Awful lot of great stuff going on in the NTT IndyCar Series right now. It is the place to be if you're a race car driver or a race fan. Hey, earlier this week, I got an opportunity to catch up with Simona de Silvestro. She was announced just recently as the driver for the new Paretta Autosport team. And I asked her, what was it like that day the announcement came together and you got to make it and Roger Penske was in the crowd?
Since I knew this was happening, I was really excited to finally announce it because, Indy is always really close to my heart. And then to finally have the day, and kind of let it out there was really cool. And also all the feedback, we got from it was amazing. So all the fans, were really behind it. And yeah, for me, it's such a big race that, and I'm super excited to be back for it.
You've known Beth for a long time. Talk a little bit about that relationship with Beth. Do you remember the first time you met her? Do you remember the first time you heard about the concept before she announced it in 2015 that she wanted to do the all-female racing? And then how have you stayed in touch between then and actually getting this piece done?
Yeah, I had heard of Beth quite early actually when she did this whole program back in 2015, and I wasn't really involved at that point, to be honest, with any of this. And after that, we didn't really know where it was going, but for sure, when I got the call in the middle of October and saying, that they are really, pushing this and having Roger behind it was really surreal, to be honest, because for me, in my IndyCar career, I've always fought to be in such a position, and for it to come together like this is super special. And big props to to Beth, to really being behind it and really believing in that, and also really pushing it, and as well bringing it to the right people with Roger. So I think this whole package coming together is super exciting, and for me, I really can't wait to get in the car and knowing that all the people really believe in the program, and I think that's quite exciting.
One of the things I think is really exciting about it, obviously, Beth's realization of this dream of putting a team together is not just about a female driver, but about an entire female organization that is competing at the highest level. But the idea that you can come to May with a brand new team who won't have been racing before then, and know that you've got a pretty good solid base because you've got that technical partnership with Penske Racing. How important is that piece of it, do you think, to being successful in the month of May?
Yeah, I think it's the most important piece, to be honest. In throughout my career, I've always fought to be in a position like this, and right now I'm really lucky to have this opportunity with Beth and Penske, and as well with Porsche. So it's just at the end of the day, all these things are really coming together to put me in the right place at the right time. And yeah, like you said, it's so important to yes, we have the whole female team and pushing this agenda, but we also need the people who have proven and been successful at the place, and having the confidence from them behind it, I think is super exciting. For me, I'm gonna come there and try to absorb as much as I can, because I know I'm with the best in the business, and I think that kind of makes you feel really, really special, and also makes you want to work even harder, because that if things come together, it can be really successful, and I think that's quite cool.
Do you think the gap between your last IndyCar race to today, so 2015 to today, is that a challenge for you? Do you think because have the cars changed enough? How are you going to manage that gap piece?
Yeah, well, for sure it'll be quick again. I don't think I've been going so fast in a while since 15. So I think that'll take a little bit of time, just to get my head around it. But at Indy, you have so much time for practice, and having the team behind me as well, like knowing that all the steps, that also the guys are going to go, I can kind of follow a bit of that lead a little bit. I think that's important. But yeah, at the end of the day, I've done the 500 a few times. I think it's always a bit easier when you know a little bit what to expect, like how everything kind of unfolds and all that. So that kind of calms me down. But for sure, when we'll do the first practice, at the end of the day, you always have to find the last little pieces, and that's really going to be the hard work throughout the week to get ready for qualifying, and then also have a really solid car for the race. So yeah, I think it'll be good. It'll be fast, but as soon as I'm in a race car, things come to me pretty quickly again, and I'm sure it'll feel like home pretty quickly.
One of the things I think you're well known for is just your intensity and your focus, and just your professionalism when you're in a car. And as I think back about things that I've seen over my 45 years of following the Indy 500 and working here for the last 11, one of the things that I think is one of the more remarkable stories, and I think it was 2011 when you had your practice crash and got burned and had to bring a backup car out, and still you were able to put aside the crash, B, put aside the fact that you still were bandaged and dealing with burns from that incident, and then C, you're qualifying at almost 225 miles an hour at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. How is it that you've got that ability to just put those things behind you and just focus on that task that's at hand?
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of craziness, but no, I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm a race car driver, and that things can happen. For sure, I think that moment was really the toughest and the most challenging time I've ever had in a race car, or anyways with myself, because it was kind of a really big shock to the system, getting hurt in the race car. But for me, it was I knew I had to get back as quickly as possible, and everyone at IMS, like all the doctors, everyone really helped me as well, to try to be as fit as I could to drive the car, and I just knew in my head that if I waited longer, it would be much harder. So that was kind of the big thing for me. It was getting back out there and see if I still enjoy it. It really spooked me, that crash, because it was something really out of my control with the suspension braking. So yeah, I was in this situation, but I had worked pretty much my entire life to be in IndyCar, to be in that position, and to throw it away like this would have been, I think something that I think I would have regretted. So when I got back in the car, I kind of told myself, okay, if I still have a bit of a smile, I need to just pursue it and fight through it. And I did, qualifying the first day on Saturday as well was a huge reward. It was, pretty crazy and intense times. And I think it made me as well as a driver, I think the belief in me and just all these things to keep fighting for it.
So when you get a comeback, hopefully we get to have fans this year. Talk a little bit about, you've done it 5 times. This could be your 6th time in the Indy 500. Race morning, walking out when the crowd's there and the place is full. What's the energy level like? What's a driver go through in their mind? What will it be like for you to come back and see fans after sort of a 6-year break from the Indy 500?
Oh, I think it'll be super special. I still remember 2010, my first Indy 500. I always knew about this race, but I never imagined it was like this. I remember I kind of prepared like any other races. And when I walked out on race day, it was so surreal, like having all these fans there. And it was just unbelievable. And trust me, now every time somebody asks me which race people have to go see, I always tell them the Indy 500, because I think it's so special, and I think the fans give us so much energy as well. You're practicing out there, you're going really fast and all that, but having these people behind you and they're also real fans. They've been following since years and generations, and I think it's so cool. And you really, I think when you walk out, you really kind of feel part of history. I think that's the biggest thing that really hits you a bit. How long this race has been going on, and for me, personally, to be lucky enough to being in that position to walk out on that grid is always, it gives you goosebumps, and it's super, super special.
You are one of the leading, if not the leading, female internationally in terms of driving ability and sort of carrying the female flag, if you will. But how hard is that to balance? Because I know probably in your head, once you strap a helmet on, it has nothing to do with being female. It has everything to do with being one of the best race car drivers in the world. But then when you get out, especially when you're here in May, you're going to see a lot of young women and girls who are going to follow you and be so excited that you're competing in the Indy 500, just like when you were here before, or Sarah Fisher or Danica Patrick or those other drivers who've competed here. Talk a little bit about how you balance that little responsibility that goes along with it, but the idea that, hey, I'm a race car driver first and foremost.
Yeah, I think, I think with being a bit older, I realize more and more like the impact something like this can have, if I'm successful at what I'm doing. So I think the biggest thing for me has, to get this opportunity now to really, compete in the right environment to be as successful as I can. I think that's the really important message. But yeah, to balance that, I never look at it this way. I'll, try to do the best job I can when I get in the race car. That's always what I've been throughout my career. I've always thought, I need to win races. I need to be competitive. And that's how I'm going to come as well in May. But for sure, when I step out of the car, I think hopefully we'll have the results. And at the end of the day, I think if you're out there and you're winning races, I think that will inspire more and more girls and to really follow their dreams and to follow their passion. But as well, having these opportunities, I think that's something I've fought throughout my career. When I was in INDYCAR, I didn't have the phone call from Roger, or something like that. I didn't have a phone call from Porsche, 10 years ago. So I think right now, I think I'm really proud that I've, been able to continue my career so far, to be able to be in this position now, to really have the belief from the right people to really make it a success. And I think that's what's really important. And, at the end of the day, I think if we can win the race, if we are up front, I think that will open so many more doors to young women. And I think that's what's important around the world in general.
So I'm going to ask you just a few fun questions. So it should be simple answers, but first race car driver you remember meeting?
Wow, that might be pretty tricky. First, I think it was Jacques Villeneuve. Yes.
Race car driver hero?
Michael Schumacher.
That's a really good one. First time you remember watching or hearing of the Indianapolis 500?
Actually, it was a funny story. My dad bought me an INDYCAR video game back in the I was really small still, and he said, "Oh, those are the coolest cars and all that." And I think I played this video game, and I think that was the first time I actually drove around Indianapolis, and I must have been like, I don't know, 5 or 6 or something like that. Yes.
If you weren't racing a car, what would you be doing?
That's a really difficult question. I have no clue, actually, to be honest.
No clue at all.
No clue. I think I'm too committed to racing, so I've never thought about it. Maybe it'd be something completely different. I always thought like opening a bakery would be super cool. But as a kid, I was thinking that. But you know, I'm glad the race car driver thing kind of worked out, because I'm not that much of a early riser. So yeah, it's not so my thing.
So maybe when you're in town, we'll hook you up with Jimmie Little, you know, the reporter.
Yeah.
Because she owns a cake store here in Indianapolis, and maybe you should spend a day helping her bake the bump cakes. They're small little cakes that they're awesome.
Okay.
By the way.
That's it. I'm in for that. Yes.
Maybe we could have we could have a little bit of fun with Jimmie Little while you're here. Hobbies. What do you do when you're not in a race car?
Well, actually, in the winter right now, I'm skiing a lot. So it's you know, really good for training as well. Walking up the hills with the skins under the skis. So so that's a big hobby of mine. I really like playing golf. I don't play it as much as I like. Yeah, mountain biking, things like that. I like outdoorsy stuff.
Favorite corner at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
Turn 1.
Why is that?
Because it's pretty intimidating, and I always feel like you need to get this right, and everything else comes into place.
That's fantastic. Well, that's all I've got for you. I appreciate you taking the time. It's going to be a fun season for the NTT IndyCar season, but the Indianapolis 500 is going to be a little bit more special now that we finally got you home and back where you belong in an NTT IndyCar. And I can't wait to see the first lap as you roll out of pit lane, and then certainly following you throughout practice and qualifying, and then race day. It's going to be an awful lot of fun, a lot of attention focused on you and Paretta Autosport. And thanks for always being passionate about this place and having the love for it and wanting to get back here. We can't wait to have you this May.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun catching up with Simona. I can't wait to see her on the track here this May with Paretta Autosport. It's going to be fun to watch, and she's going to be fast. You know, one of the things that we've done these last few episodes is ask you to send in some questions. The first one's from Mackenzie. What are you most excited about in 2021? Well, that's a pretty easy one for me to answer. Last year was a tough year. I'm a fan, like many of you, and not having fans at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was really, really difficult. So for me, I'm looking forward to the day we can open the gates in May. We can allow fans back into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We can show you all the improvements that Roger Penske's helped us make over the last year, and we can get back to a more normal May and what we love so much, the Indianapolis 500, and celebrating those men and women who compete in it, but mostly celebrating those friendships that we make sitting in the grandstands at the racetrack. So it's you that I can't wait to see and I'm most excited about. Nick Booth says, will IndyCar drivers run the same layout in both the IndyCar, I know where this question's going, and in the IndyCar Grand Prix and the doubleheader, or could we possibly see a switch up and run Turn 1 oval on one occasion? You know, when Formula One was here, they did run the Turn 1 oval. So that for those of you that haven't seen that, that means instead of using the infield road course inside Turn 1, they stayed out on oval Turn 1, went backwards or went the wrong direction through it. If you were going backwards, that wouldn't be good. They went the wrong direction through it, going down into Turn 1. When we tested before we started this race in 2014, we looked at that. And honestly, the speeds are so high. The braking zone then becomes so difficult. And actually, it didn't make the racing any better, we believe. So the layout that we have right now performs as the best racing layout that the Indianapolis Motor Speedway has. And what I'm caring about is that the racing is exciting. There are great opportunities to pass. And we put on a show that make people want to tune in and watch it or come back to the Indianapolis 500 every year or the Indianapolis Road Race every year. And the way that we do that is on the current 14-turn, 2.45-ish mile layout that we have. So we're going to stay with that this year. Doesn't mean that someday in the future we wouldn't change it, but right now we're going to stay where we are. Again, fans, thanks for those questions. Those of you that didn't get them answered, we'll try and answer them on our social media channels. Keep asking us those questions, even when we're not asking for them. We love to interact with each of you because it is what makes the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indianapolis 500 so special, you the fan. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you check out all of our behind-the-scenes videos that are posted on our social channels, and we'll keep more coming at you throughout the spring.